Thank you for tuning in to the Natty News Daily podcast. This episode is brought to you in part by our sponsor, Core Nutritionals. You can check out corenutritionals.com for all your supplement needs and use code Natty News Daily at checkout to save 20%. Enjoy the episode.
What's going on, people? Welcome to another episode of Natty News Daily. As you can see, I'm flying solo tonight. James and Dan couldn't make it on, but we made up for it with a special guest, fellow Canadian, IFBB Pro, Matt Butale. How are you, my friend?
Leroy, it's always a pleasure to be joined with the Natty News team. I'm hanging out, man. You know what it is. It's always a good time with you, brother.
That's good. That's good. I saw that little point to the background for those watching the video version. You can see that beautiful IFBB Pro card with some medals there in the back. So let's play a little catch up real quick. So remind me, 2021 was that win, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that was at the Natural Canada Pro Qualifier. Took the win in bodybuilding. Didn't quite squeak it in classic, but you were neck and neck for it too.
I'll take my loss, man. Fair enough. The guy Samuel Paquin from Quebec deserved it, and it's funny because I've got the clips still. If you do look at it when we're going to be called out for the first and second place, like I'm looking at dude and I'm like, congratulations. And he's like so focused. He's looking straight. He's just like,
Totally,
I got it.
yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like, dude, I look at the judges when they were looking at both of us. So like, congratulations, just take it. And then he got his award. But hey, man, it's all fair game. You know, I already got my pro card 20 minutes before that. So I was just 100%. On a different cloud.
Yeah, you were probably weren't even hearing things at that point. You're probably still echoing in your head the win from before.
Yeah, man. Eyes were still teary. Eyes were still red. I almost didn't even go on stage for classes because I just thought the day was done. I was going to go home, but I'm like, oh, shit, I paid for classic. So, yeah.
For those that maybe don't know your journey, kind of give a brief, because you hadn't been competing really that long, if I remember correctly, right? And you're very young. You're younger than I am. So can you kind of go back a little bit, like when you started to that win?
Definitely, man. I can walk you through memory lane. So long before I got the best pro card win from the Natty News. Okay, that's right. 2021. You gotta have it. Shoot, I gotta wear it because we're on here today.
Yeah, but throw that on. Real product placement right there.
Right on. You feel me? So beauty. Anyway, so it all started, and I'm gonna give y'all the in-depth because I know of that saying where they say, you know, heartbreaks make bodybuilders or great bodybuilders. That little cliche saying. It did apply for me because back in 2017, which was the year that I had my first show, King Kong Classic, with Chris Wong and Tristan Lee, all those guys came there. So that year, I was getting out of a horrible breakup. I was, you know, working back to back as a security guard. I loved bodybuilding, you know, in high school and all that. I was doing freestyle wrestling, playing football. I was always an athlete my entire life. And so anyway, fast forward to 2017, got out of my first, you know, breakup, high school sweetheart, you know, screwed me over.
Man's crushed.
Yeah, exactly. And so my buddy, who coincidentally is also named Matt, he was in the gym, and he's like, he was also going through a breakup as well. And I used to play football with Matt back in the day, so we were always close buddies. And what happened was we bumped into each other at the gym, and he goes, you know, you're looking really good. You've always been strong. I'm doing a competition. Why don't you do it with me? And we're going to quote unquote get back at our exes. That was the sort of, right?
For sure.
And I was thinking about it. I'm like, you know, I've loved bodybuilding ever since I found out about it. I would skip class to watch Pumping Iron several times. Right. So, you know, I thought about it, and then I'll be honest with you. I mean, and again, don't knock Leroy for this. Don't cancel him. This is my mouth, but I thought bodybuilding was gay, bro. Like, I'm not going to go on stage and, you know, in colored underwears and flex muscles in front of people. Just couldn't get it through, even though I love the sport. And then he just egged me on. He's like, bro, you got to do it. You got to do it. And then I think, was it 12 weeks out? I committed, hired an old school coach by the name of, he's actually a retired pro, Jean-Joel Pierre, IFBB pro. And, you know, he was at the local gym. Started paying dude $500 a month for the training, for the nutrition, which honestly, the nutrition was quite ass. Didn't even have any measurements for, you know, the foods that I was supposed to be eating, but it was just, it looked like a groceries list. But the training was impeccable, and my physique definitely replicated that. And, you know, it was definitely an amazing experience. He taught me how to pose. He showed me pretty much everything I need to know to get into the amateur sort of fitness industry as a natural athlete. I was really nervous. I committed, but I didn't really want to do it. I thought I was going to lose, because we were supposed to book juniors, but he booked me for opens. And this is my first show. And I'm like, God damn, I'm going to get smoked. So I go up there, and by the grace of God and my hard work, I was able to pull the first place. And, I met a whole bunch of people there, people we both know, pros that were there in the backstage helping their athletes. And I was really like opened up to like the fitness side of things. And I was still working as a security guard, working 2 jobs as a bouncer and working at an auction lot doing security. And I was like, I could probably make a living off of this. So sat with it for a little bit. Time went on, continued to train. I dropped the other coach and continued to learn a little bit on my own. And then I self-coached myself into 2018, the first ever Natural Nationals, but held or hosted by Rudy. And so then I went there and I was super confident, improved a little bit, competed in the welterweight, made weight. Of course, that was hell. And I pulled off the first place, but I didn't get the pro card. Right. And my buddy who ended up turning pro at that show, IFBB pro Tony Koch, he ended up becoming like one of my really, really good mentors. He's 10 years my senior. So when he saw me there, he's like, man, you've got a lot of potential. I know I got the pro card, but you're definitely up next. So he would just take me under his wing. I would train with him, learn with him and his coach. And that became, to this day, one of the most wonderful relationships that I've ever created outside of bodybuilding. I mean, you being one of them, of course. And then, we got from 2018 into 2019, I'll be honest, it was really, really ugly and rough for me financially. And even the idea of competing just wasn't something on the forefront of my head. But luckily, because I have really, really good friends and, really good support system, Tony, which was one of them, and don't kill me, Tony, for saying this, because this was a secret we kept away from Mrs. Koch, but he ended up spotting me a couple hundred so that I could actually compete. And like, that really meant a lot for me. And I ended up going to the show. I wanted to size up because I was so obsessed with putting on some, extra tissue, but I realized that it did take away from my quality. I didn't even make weight for middleweight, which is upper class the following year. Had to go outside. I was running and spitting. And, I had Ron on my back. He's like, man, you better make weight because you got like 20 minutes left. So I came back 0.1 clean, but I didn't look the way that I was supposed to. And went there, got the second place to, I don't know if you remember him, Jonathan Horlock. Very humble guy.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So Jonathan, and then he smoked me that year and I fucking cried over it for so long. And, he would motivate me and stuff like that. And then COVID happened. And so it was pretty much a dry period for competition. But you remember this, there was a time period where the King Kong Classic was sort of on and off. It was like the show is happening, but it's not, but it is. And then we'd follow the updates. And so I was at the time working with a coach. His name was Brett Godin, on behalf of Phoenix Fitness. He's based out in BC, and he was online training me to get me ready for the show. And I learned a fuck ton from him. So shout out to Brett Godin for watching this. Long story short, the show was confirmed about 3 weeks away from when we were all going to go to it, and absolutely nobody was ready because nobody was training. There was no gyms. There was, lucky Leroy because he had his home gym set up. So, right. But everyone else was
actually go back pre-COVID or pre-home gym. I was squatting with cement stones outside. So,
I saw that.
We'll go back.
Touche.
Those were dark times, let's be honest.
Touche, definitely. So we were all doing makeshift stuff, and I was driving out to my boy's gym, driving out to private gyms that were illegally opened, and no, I'm not going to disclose them because I love them, but they were helping me out. I was getting the hookup, and it was mainly because of my support system and that, I was tied in, so I was still training. And that 3 weeks away from the show, I was pretty much at like gunpoint. I was ready to shoot any moment. But I had a lot of weight to lose in a short period of time. I was still looking good, but I really had to make weight. That was the end of the thing because I wanted to get ready for Classic Physique and get that qualification so that I could double my odds for the pro card because I was already qualified for bodybuilding, right? And so it was at 3 weeks, around 3 weeks, I lost 29 pounds or something. Just pain, right?
I remember that actually. I remember you posting that and I thought you were nuts.
I guess I'm nuts a little bit, but like I really wanted that qualification, and I'm like thinking if I don't do this now, then I'm gonna have to do the Barrie show right before the Nationals, and that's just gonna be pressure because I don't even know if the Barrie show is gonna happen, let alone the Nationals. So I said, let me be safe, put all my eggs in this basket, kill myself now so that I can sleep tomorrow. And when the show does open up, the IFBB Pro Natural National Qualifiers, that I'll be set. And that's exactly what happened. Everything went as planned. I went there, took the first place, and never got the overall. And this is a disclaimer for everybody. I've never won an overall title ever
Yeah.
Literally, that was the first and last time I ever got the overall.
Yeah.
And I was really butthurt because the very first show that I did, the overall was like, and Chris was doing it big, man. You remember how it was, the Florida trip and like the sponsorship. And so I was bummed out. I really wanted to get an overall, but that's what happened there. And I got the first place, qualified for Classic. Really, really went in that year, man. I remember Good Life was sort of on and off with COVID, and they had like these windows of time that you had to train. Like, bro, I would literally hide in the washroom for those windows and then double book myself, run out and train, and back and forth. And it was just a dogfight all of 2020 getting to 2021. And I didn't have to compete in 2021 until nationals because I already took care of that with killing myself, losing the 30 pounds in like 3 weeks. So I'm like, okay, I have all the time to just make this perfect. And then, I mean, you saw it, man. I was posting the pictures, just getting fucking ripped every single 100%. Week, looking better. And I was coming into that show with confidence, but a newfound sense of like being humble, because my very first nationals when I did in 2018, I'm like, bro, I'm coming for that pro card, blah, blah, blah. All my friends were motivating me and I thought I was him, right? So and then I got bitch slapped by reality. So then I realized,
it's so tough because you get that echo chamber of everybody around you supporting you and saying you're the best, and you start to believe it. And then when you get that slap in the face of little taste of humble pie, it's like, yo, like I appreciate you guys saying these things, right? like I always tell clients, I'm like, your mom's gonna always say you look the best. Your mom's not judging, and you gotta like take that and be like, thanks, mom. We'll talk later, kind of deal. So
totally, bro.
I think any athlete that gets past that kind of initial stages of like being an athlete, you're beginner athlete, intermediate, then you're like obviously right, professional athlete. Like you kind of learn that like there's always levels to this, right? And
totally.
You have that regional level, and then the national level, the pro level. So it's I can very much attest to that feeling of like you're going into these shows, you're like, I'm gonna kill everybody, and you're like, dude, you're literally like so new to this, but I'm gonna kill everybody, and then someone walks in and they're like,
dude, it was so bad. Literally, that was like Tony, because I'm there, I'm gonna kill it. And I remember like I was watching Instagram before I went to that show, and I was like anticipating everybody that was supposed to be backstage, but Tony wasn't posting. So when I go there and I see this fucker for the first time, I'm like, man, like
must have missed his photos.
Right? Hey, bro, like what class are you getting?
You do a men's physique, right? No.
Man, that smoked my, like I was dead, man. But anyway, it's funny too. That reminds me, Leroy, I had in my bio at the time, it was like 2020 IFBB Pro. Like I already like cemented it, right? And then when that didn't happen, everyone was like in my DMs, like, hey, bro, you got to take that shit down, bro. Like that's, you know what I mean? Like you embarrass yourself. But I did that. But the funniest thing was, because that was written 2018, 2 years prior. I actually ended up turning pro 2021. So was I wrong? Not really, because COVID happened in 2020 and there wasn't a nationals.
But anyway. you just had the wrong calendar up. That's fine.
Right. Anyway, anything to help me sleep at night, that's ego food. So but yeah, man. So essentially what happened was 2019 he helped me out and I was able to compete through that, so thank you to Tony. And then going into 2021, that was just grind year, and I was getting ready, and I was more humble this time around because I learned like you just don't do those things. You're ready when you're ready, and then you only talk when it's done. Right. And that's also something I kind of took from you, because I would see the way you post, I would see the way that you sort of lead into a show, and I'm like, okay, all right, noted. Check.
It was really interesting. Like, and I see a lot of people, especially clients of mine, that they post very similar stuff, which I totally like appreciate because it was some sort of inspiration for people. But I remember I posted every single day, this many days out, this many days out. And if you scroll back, you can see at the bottom, I would put this, it was almost like an affirmation, but it wasn't necessarily like, I'm going to come win. It was like, I have all the tools to do this.
Right. Yeah. Or that foreshadowing, man.
Yeah. Almost like like what you did, but kind of like a smaller, like not an outright. But if you scroll back, like you can like read between the lines. Basically every day I'm like, I'm winning. But in different language, right? So I think there's definitely something to be said about like that, speak it into existence. And I would totally, like, I'm not gonna knock down what you did, because I very much have done the same thing. And I think anybody successful is going to be vocal about it because of that confidence, right? And you know
Mildly
what?
boisterous, yeah.
Yeah. And the chips will fall as they may, but I'm not gonna ever go into a show with the hopes of not winning. Like
Oh,
that's
fuck
just
no.
not in our DNA,
Right.
right? So
Absolutely not.
and people that get, offended by that or whatever, it's like, if you were in my shoes if you had the skills that I believe I have, you wouldn't be in the same boat. You would say the same thing, right? Like, you are a very talented bodybuilder. You have the coach, the team, the access to the facilities. That was the other thing. Like, I remember saying, like, I have a great coach. I have access to a home gym that is better than most, like, some public gyms. I have the ability to buy the food I need, to do the cart. Like, I have everything I need to make this possible, and I believe I can. So I'm going to talk about it. The people that don't get that, they're lacking some of those pieces, because if you did believe it, you'd be up there with us on the rooftop shouting it out to anybody that'll listen, right? So
point blank, period.
Yeah, man. I think that's just that just comes with a level of confidence in the skills that you have. So
well said. Well said. And it's the confidence too, right? Because it's like, there's definitely bravado. I'm not going to deny that. We do have like, we look at ourselves in the mirror for a living. So there's going to be some form of arrogance, but it's the confidence that's developed from what I think you agree as well. Just the habit of practice and looking around and saying, okay, how many tools do I have and how efficiently am I using them? Better yet, how much of my effort is actually being displayed on my physique, or at least my progress. And then that sort of develops not even the sense of confidence, but it's almost like it's just a literal fact that you are who you are at that point. You're just telling them, right? So, and to many people that don't have those resources or don't understand that perspective, it's always going to be like a negative thing, a negative connotation. But for those that really do grind, especially in the gym, they know, okay, if this guy is saying these things, I know for a fact he's put all his chips down and that he's not coming in arrogant. He just did all of his homework, and you must have too. That's it, right?
So I'm sitting here with a full house ready to play, right? And that's just that's the culmination of the environment you build for yourself, the situations you put yourself in, the team that you get around you. And then it's like, you know what? I'm coming in with every tool that I need to make this possible. I have in my arsenal. That's not to say that other people don't. And that's, we've all been in that situation where there's, we haven't won every show we did. So there's clearly other people that have all the tools as well. And then it's just, again, how the chips fall. But when you have all those tools at your disposal, it's hard not to have that bit of like pep in your step, that it's like, yo, this is mine for the taking, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, you know how it goes with the hours of cardio, with like being so freaking like down to the gram of rice and all of that. It's like the way you speak is almost a byproduct of the way that you live. And in that state of high momentum, it's just who you become, right? And it's not even who you become permanently. I personally believe I'm two different people when I'm prepping and when I'm not. But it's definitely it's a real thing. But getting back on track, Leroy, about competing and all that stuff. So I was walking into that show, I was really freaking confident, but at the same time, I was like, you know what? I don't mind if I don't turn pro, because like, let's look at it here. I'm going to be competing for the rest of my life. I love this. So if I don't turn pro, cool. I'm just going to go back next year or the next year or the next year. And then that's my story. But it just so happened to be that because that was my mindset, that I really was going there to win, but I wasn't going there only to win, because I also love this, that it provided room for me to just be more comfortable and be myself. And then when I went there and I presented my very best package with my very best stage performance, with an amazing, array of competitors that I think was like a fair competition, like it just made sense. And when I turned pro, although I cried because I was relieved, I also cried because I kind of knew in my heart that I've never looked this good. I never worked this hard. And this is something to prove that, right? And like what I thought was impossible is now possible. 23 natural IFBB pro. I was just thinking of the next step. But it was very blurry to me, which is something that we're going to be talking about right now, and I do remember that, just going back to the 2021 show with your athletes, even we were hanging out. That was a cool experience that whole time. But so if we're looking at it now, 2022, I didn't compete once. That was just a layoff year. And it was actually the first year that I took off from competing since I started. Because when I started competing, I competed at least once a year. right? From 2017 up until 2021. And
Yeah.
so I took the time off, not even really with the intention of like, let's get super swole and like, we're gonna go on stage soon. It was more of like a dial back and focus on the other moving parts in my life, or the parts that weren't moving that I was supposed to make move, right? Like
For sure.
business, like family, like
Totally.
other relationships, and just so many other things, in life as men we have to deal with. And
100%.
this became, or that was the prior year, 2022, that was like the focal point. And then now heading to 2023, having paid attention to some of the things that I left lacking, as I prioritize bodybuilding, this year is the year that now my headspace is sort of, permitting me to take on the next challenge when it comes to competition. And now here's the dilemma. As an amateur, working so fucking hard to get this pro card, I got it, boom. But now I'm a pro and I feel like an amateur again because the next goal is the Olympia. So it just never ends, right? And
Yeah.
even with that, I mean, there's so many things in between when it comes to like the Olympia, like what's the route? How are you going to get there? Are you going to stay natty? And then so on and so forth. And definitely in this episode, we're going to be talking about that because I'm going to be open doors. I'll never hide anything from you, bro, or the people in the podcast family supporting the Natty News Daily, because that's what this is all about. So essentially, this year I made the commitment to myself that I will be making my very first attempt at going to the Olympia. And yes, that sounds really boisterous and like just absurd, but so did saying I was going to turn pro in my 20s, right? And so I think that it does sound impossible, but I also know it is possible because I've got the proof right behind me. And the thing is, like, my route, the path that I want to take, not just with this show, but like in general as an IFBB pro, is to literally perform as good as I can as a natural athlete and present the best natural package each and every single year. And in my heart, my goal is to, and I told my friends this and they laughed at me, but that's okay, is to literally become the Ronnie Coleman of, I think you're aware of the show called the Ben Weider Classic, right? To go to that show and to just fucking win it as many times as I can. Like, yes, going to the Olympia is going to be awesome, but I also want to have pro wins as an IFBB pro. Otherwise, like, what's the point, right? And so the Ben Weider Naturals show is I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the only natural show in the IFBB. And when I say natural, I say that with quotations because we really know, right? And so that's like the route that I want to take. It's, get ready for most of the year, do the Ben Weider, see how I do, rinse and repeat. So that's been my style since I started competing. One show max, do as much improvements as I can in the year, and then one show again the following. And even that is, when I look at you or when I look at any other bodybuilder, quite premature, because you take really, 2-3 years, you take a break, and then come back on stage, right? But for me, outside of placings and outside of performing really well, I just really fucking love it. And if I keep myself away from the stage too long, I've noticed it does have some sort of a negative impact on my mental health. Not that like I need the stage per se, but it's definitely like a pivotal point.
The passion for you, right? Like that's just it, right? Like there's no, I don't know, with competing, there's no right or wrong. Like you're right. I've, the last time I was 2019 to 2022. And, I'm already closing in on my first year away, and, the earliest is 3 again.
Right.
But I think for me, it's a lot of other, lifestyle factors that play into that, like stuff that I want to put attention to that a bit more longer term. But I mean, you look at most IFBB pros, like they're also competing every year, right? And at the end of the day, if you have these goals that you can tick off in the time frame that you feel appropriate for you, like that, who's to say that's wrong, right?
Exactly, right. And yeah.
So for the Ben Weider, so for those that maybe aren't familiar, because I know we get a lot of people that don't necessarily know. So the Ben Weiders is hosted by the IFBB Pro League, but it is, as of right now anyways, the only again supposed to be natural IFBB Pro show. And a lot of people, like, for example, when I've posted photos of you, it's like, how can there be a natural IFBB pro? And I'm like, just because you're an IFBB pro doesn't necessarily mean you're enhanced. And here in Canada, there is a route to get an IFBB pro card through the natural stream, which is very fortunate for us because not many countries have that. So with the Ben Weiders, this is something I was not made aware of. And I actually had a conversation with Rudy at the Olympia this past year, that the open bodybuilding, if you win the overall open bodybuilding, that's a pro win.
Really?
If you win the overall in classic physique, that is an Olympia ticket.
Exactly. He clarified that for me too. I asked
So
him.
it is not impossible. And anybody listening, because trust me, this nugget's in my brain too.
I
It
hear
is
you.
not impossible for a couple Canadian natural athletes
Helpful.
to one day grace the Olympia stage.
Totally.
And you know, I'm not going to sit here and say I know for sure that the testing or the natural status of the Ben Weider is, I don't know what that means. I don't know their drug testing standards. I don't know how that all works. And I think me and you have been in this game a long time. We'd be stupid to not assume some people are going to try to squeak through the system. But you can't focus on that because we can't do nothing about that.
Hell no.
But you, as an IFBB pro, it is not impossible for you to go to the Ben Weiders. And as of right now, if that, because that's realistically the only pro show that you can go in there and do damage. Like, you know, you're going to go up there at the Tampa Pro, Toronto Pro, like great, you're a great bodybuilder, but it's a different ball game, right?
Yeah.
And you and I both know that.
100%.
But if we're going to go to a show and guys like you that are 100% natural, guys like me, 100% natural, haven't taken a thing, all even playing field, you can
Bro,
go
that's
in
a
there.
show, man.
You can go
That's
in there and you can punch an Olympia ticket, which not many people know. And I think a lot of people listening are probably gonna be like, wait, what do you mean? Because I didn't know that till I spoke with Rudy.
Right.
It's unfortunate that I think bodybuilding's the only class that you don't get an Olympia ticket to. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, you score points. You don't get the ticket.
Yeah, you score points, but you don't get the Olympia ticket. But for you, obviously, we know that classic physique and you aren't unknown to one another. So do you know, I'm pretty confident in this. If you're an IFBB pro, you don't need to get a classic IFBB pro card to do classic, correct? You can do whatever you want.
Oh yeah, I believe it's every year, just the same way that we have it with, at least I can speak on behalf of the OPA/CPA, it's that you would renew your membership every single year. And I believe in the renewal process, you do select which division that you're devoting yourself to.
Okay.
Right. So it's like upon renewal and yes, I'm going to tell you all this. If you don't know this, if you want to become an IFBB pro, and once you do get your pro card, you will have to invest. I think it's cheap. It's $250 a year, $250 US, I believe, to reinstate your card and, you know, have it so that you can be an active athlete. And yeah, it's you can do that. As far as I'm concerned, it's like on a yearly basis or even on a show basis, because you just have your pro card and the show that you apply for, the show that you intend to compete in, you're gonna have to just specify that before then. Or I believe it's like every year you get to like just be cemented in one spot. But you said it, man. Classic and we're no strangers, and I've only ever competed in bodybuilding. Most of my shows ever competed ever, like in terms of competing, have all been natural bodybuilding, and I haven't done classic until the first time in 2020 with that crash diet. And so when I walked up to Rudy, I said, both of them were that, Rudy and Ron, I said, like, so what's the deal with this? Like, why get a pro card if like I would never grace the stage? He's like, who told you that? And he talks to me about the Ben Weider. And then I'm like, okay, well then, so should I just continue in bodybuilding naturally? And he just looked at me. He says, if you want to go to the Olympia, you're going to do classic because you'll get a ticket punch for the O. Then I said, okay, well then I'm just going to stick to doing classic, and then I'm going to, bring my best. And whether I win or not, that's just the show that I'm going to be doing anyway as a pro. That's like my only out, right? Naturally. And that I would rinse and repeat. And like, you and I know this very well. When it comes to the testing of bodybuilding shows, they vary per organization, and they're not as stringent across the board. And I can tell you personally, and of course you were there, you saw the shows, you know that not every single human being that claims that they're natural on the stage actually is. But that's not to knock the show or the promoters or their level of testing. Like, I'm not knocking them. That is more of an integrity issue with the athletes. But aside from that, you don't focus on that, because really, if you're that good in terms of you lay down the homework, you utilize all of your tools, you look no other way, you have tunnel vision, as overly optimistic as this sounds, you could beat people that are on. And I've done it. You've done it. I know you've done it.
I did it at the Butale show last year.
Right. So I'm like, and that's just what it is. And
that's the other thing too, is I did it in classic. And I think that's where there can be, guys like us can kick some doors in is because you don't need to be massive. It's
Exactly.
shape, it's flow, it's symmetry. I was 146-7 pounds at that show, and
Right.
the closest guy to me was, I think, 198. Right? Like,
Like, yeah,
that's
man.
fine. Yeah, that's
Proof's in the
fine.
pudding, baby. Absolutely. And like one thing I'm a little ticked that you mentioned it is the fact that most athletes don't know about this show. And I'm like, fuck, I hope nobody finds out, because then there's going to be more. But aside from that, I think that it's a really good opportunity for those that are really like dying hard to live the bodybuilding life, but still also be natural and do this for like a really long period of time, if not for the rest of their life. And so I love the fact that there's an out to do that, and that you don't have to
Yeah,
put your life on the line for it, because this is the IFBB, man. Like, I love all bodybuilding across the board, amateur, pro, any kind of pro.
yeah,
But we all, as kids, dreamed about the
for
IFBB pro
sure.
card. I want what
It's
Arnold
still
has,
the
right?
Super Bowl, right? Whether you're natural or not. Like, I think you would be, this conversation I've had with friends of mine, right? Where it's just like, you would be silly to not, if the opportunity presented itself, right, for you, right? I mean,
Oh
you're
yeah,
you've got the pro card, and I think you would be silly to not be like, yo, if I could go to the Olympia, like, of course I'm gonna try, right?
yeah,
And
exactly,
that's
right.
where I think more education about that show in particular, because more natural athletes are getting their IFBB pro cards. I know there's a show in the UK, I believe, that is a natural
Yes,
show.
yeah,
But then even at NPC nationals and stuff like that, like, you have natural athletes, and it seems to be a bit more common in classic physique, where you have
yes,
these really impressive natural athletes that are turning pro, but then not knowing what they can do, right? And that's where, I know, I don't know if it was last year, might have been last year. I'm pretty sure there was only one pro bodybuilder at the Ben Weeders, and there was like maybe 5 or 6 classic.
yep,
And I think a lot of, like, obviously there's a smaller pool of natural IFBB pros as a whole, but I think another side of it is not many people are aware of it.
that's true.
Most people know about Chicago and Tampa and Toronto and Vancouver, and then it's like Ben Weeders. Like, what does that even mean? But it's
Right,
like, that as it stands right now as a natural athlete, that, like, you kind of said it right. It's kind of your Olympia.
exactly, right. And so going to the Olympia is just a byproduct, sort of the way that I look at the pro card, and are the way they looked at the pro card in the past is the way they look at the Olympia now, where it's just like, yeah, something that I really want, and I'm gonna die for this thing, metaphorically speaking, because I'm not gonna pin myself for freaking $400,000. It's not gonna happen, right? But like that's what it is. And I think that most people just don't know about it, because like the natural nationals that we have here in Canada, it's very new. I think the very first Ben Weeders was hosted in Quebec 2019, and the very second one was 2020, if they even did that. But they're at the third or fourth annual, and it's a very, very new show, so it does
Yeah.
make sense that not a lot of people know about it. And it's weird too. It's very weird, because I was keeping my eye out, and ever since I was aware of Ben Weeders, I always kept my eye out on who is going to go compete there, like the caliber of competition, both amateur and professional.
Yeah.
And I noticed that within the last year, because they had a lot more people come last year, there were a lot of pros there that didn't even turn pro naturally, that were just, metaphorically speaking, downsizing or putting their medicine cabinet away just to go compete. And the funny thing is, bro, I think the reason why I'm not as bugged about it is because the judges are not just like random people. Like, they go to all the shows, they know who's who. And so literally, I don't know if it was judges messaging athletes or whatever it was. There was like 5 or 6 people that dropped out of the Ben Weir before the show happened, because everybody knew that they just hopped off to go to compete for a ticket to the O, right? And so I have at least some faith in the judges, if not a lot more faith than I did in the past, in the IFBB, specifically in the CPA, that they like govern this as hard as they can, even if the testing isn't as stringent. So
Yeah.
it's really, it's comforting to know, man, that
100%.
even if they're not everybody's 100% natural, that they're making a real effort, even if the testing doesn't really reflect that. They have the people in the inner circles that are on the panels that know you. So it's like, who you lying to?
Yeah,
So I love
exactly.
that fact about the CPA and the IFBB. Like, all the judges are real close knit, and you can't really like cheat your way around it. And I
Oh,
love
for
that.
sure. Yeah. They're on the ball. That's for damn sure.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. And
Yeah.
so like, even as far as just competing as a pro now, it's like, so Ben Weeders, I guess, become the Ronnie Coleman of that. If I win it every single time I win, I'll go to the Olympia, and that's just going to be a trip in and of itself. But outside of that, man, it's just rinse and repeat. This is like day one all over again. I'm going to my first show. and I'm just trying to get a win. It's rinse and repeat. Just train harder than last time, eat better than last time, rest better, you know, be more vigilant with like supplementation, even like coaching too. Be a little bit more diverse with who I allow to help me and things of that sort. But long story short, man, the end goal is what I just laid out over here. And this is how I see myself competing for the rest of my life. No, I don't want to hop on gear. For those of you that are asking, I know it's like, hey, you got the genetics, you're young, take advantage. But it's also like, bro, I want to be living a really high quality life past 50, 60, 70, 80. I want my grandkids to watch my old freaking videos with me. And I'm like, you know, healthy enough to like do things with them. And the vanity, the cash, the quick cash, all that stuff, the attention, it's like so alluring. But if you really love bodybuilding, you know that you're not going to do anything that is going to jeopardize your health and your body, which will essentially take you away from it. So it's oxymoronic. It's kind of confusing. Even as a professional bodybuilder, like that is on gear to like be on gear, right? Because and we know it's not all about health and fitness. Just getting ripped alone is already like unhealthy. But when you add gear into the mix, it's like just not good for you, man. It's not. If you really love bodybuilding and you don't care about the fame, then it's the worst thing you could do for yourself, right? But if you care about the fame, knock yourself out. People do drugs for like worse reasons. So like, you know, my question to you before I guess we wrap is, it's the only question I got for Leroy is, when will Leroy become an IFBB pro? Because I'm waiting, man. Like, I know you can do it. We all know you can do it. I'm just waiting for when
he chooses to.
When he chooses to. I love it. This guy, you got the bodybuilding answers, man.
I appreciate you coming on, brother. I appreciate you coming on. So for those that want to follow along with obviously the future that is going to unfold for you, where do they find you, man?
You find me on literally everywhere. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn. You can just search Matt Butale, MATT space BUTALE. I would say my @ name, but come on, let's be serious, because you'll see it when you follow me on Instagram. But I appreciate you, Leroy.
I appreciate you coming on, man. If you guys enjoyed this episode with Matt, let me know. And if you want to get him on again, obviously let us know. Appreciate you guys. Subscribe for future episodes. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Natty_News_Daily. You're going to get one of those medals. We'll do a best Ben Weider win next time.
Yeah, let's do it.
Appreciate you guys. We'll see you guys in the next one.